Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Mike and Peter talking about mental health and mental poor health in the legal profession. Mike is a lawyer, I'm the therapist. You may have met us before in these sessions, but Mike is lawyering while human, and I am the emotional weightlifter for lawyers. If you want to know more about us, if you want to contact us, there will be contact details at the end of this video, and you can always get in touch with us on LinkedIn. Today, we've decided to talk about lawyers under pressure. We can all be under pressure for different reasons and different times in our lives, but professionally, lawyers or the legal profession is one of the most stressed professions on this planet. And we need to talk about why that is and if there are ways we can do things differently. And Mike, you being in the profession, what is your initial perspective on this?
So yeah, I mean, my initial perspective is that that's true. It's a very high pressure job and can be, often is. And I think, there are all sorts of different types of lawyers. But, if you do litigation, there are deadlines. And I know all jobs have deadlines, but, you're filing things with the court, it impacts the big case. If you're working on the deal side of things, there are these, big transactions and you're worried about, with contracts that bind people, and you're worried about, if you mess up a word here, the impact of that. So that sort of perfectionism and not making mistakes and looking at like all the what ifs, I think, can increase the pressure. And then, there are all types of lawyers who, work with people who are, having a hard time in life, or in the criminal system, or civil liberties, being infringed on, and trying to protect their families. And so there's a lot of pressure even outside of kind of the traditional law firm, corporate kind of side that we often think about, when you're trying to do your best to help people's lives. So I think it is high pressure, and I think pressure. I think is a word that probably has some negative connotation to it. Not all pressure, I think, is bad. I think sometimes, the right amount of pressure, I think, can lead to the urgency you might need to sort of get up and get something done, or
Yes,
do a
absolutely.
good job on something, right? Or be creative. But I think when you cross a threshold, it can have a negative sort of detrimental effect, and kind of kill creativity and make mistakes, compound the risk that mistakes are being made, and result in not only poor mental health for the individual, but also the job not being done as well as it should be. And I think just my opening thoughts on this in law are one, I think, this is a leadership issue. I think because you're naturally, when you're partners, you're working with associates, and pressure has a way of trickling down in humans. And I think when the person at the top feels anxiety or stress or pressure, I think it's a very human thing to sort of transfer that onto someone else, transfer blame and stressor and stress. It's just pressure and stress. And again, that's not always that's often not good leadership, not productive. But I do see that that's what happens. So I think thinking about that is one issue. That's something I think a lot about, how we can function better in teams and lead people, and deal with navigating pressure or stress-filled situations without sort of projecting down stress and pressure that's in a negative way.
Interesting point, Mike, because you're so right. Human beings are under pressure, and when they're under pressure, they usually transfer that pressure to somebody else. And in business, it tends to roll downwards. So if I'm the boss and I'm having a hard time and I'm under pressure, I will somehow or other give that pressure onto somebody else. But I think one of the other points you made is there's pressure and then there's pressure. We need to have some sort of pressure to keep going. In my world, it's called good stress and bad stress. Good stress is when you're Usain Bolt and you run 100 meters in world record time. That's stress, but that's the adrenaline that drives you. Bad stress is when we have all the cortisol running through our bodies, where we're under the constant pressure to perform, to earn, and the billable hours are mounting up, and you have to do more of those because the person above you is under pressure to get the spreadsheets, the bottom line to match up and to look good. So they put pressure on the juniors to do more work and more work. But there's also the clients. Clients change their minds. They want this, and tomorrow they want that, and then you can scrap all the stuff that you've done already. Of course, that adds to the billable hours, but it also adds more workload because you've actually wasted some time. And when you feel that you're wasting your time or that you're not performing to the level that either you want and you expect of yourself or that other people expect, then the stress comes in. Then we're heading towards burnout. Then we have all the substance abuse, alcohol, drugs, whatever, to self-medicate ourselves out of the problem. So conflicting demands, I have always found in my industry, has been extremely distressing to deal with because you don't know what you're aiming for. When somebody keeps moving the goalposts, that's awful.
Yeah, and it's funny. I know you're the therapist and I'm the lawyer, but I think about this topic of stress and pressure. I think hopefully correctly, but much more through like a psychological lens. Because to me, I think the most important thing to do better to alleviate this is communication and boundaries. Things that we think about. And I think when I think about talking to a therapist and maybe I don't like to give someone bad news, and so I don't directly address them, and I'm indirect, and and then it kind of gets worse because you haven't. So I think that's such a doing that creates so much pressure, and so learning to say, you know what, I'm just going to sort of tell it like it is, like this bad thing might happen, this good thing might happen. Here are kind of the percentages. This is what we're doing, or this is how much it's going to cost. And hey, it's going to cost a lot, but that's what this costs. Those tough conversations, like having them, I think is a really good way to alleviate pressure, even though it doesn't feel that way. And then also just communicating, to your team. If you're just yelling at someone, and projecting stress and pressure onto them and saying, do this better, do this, faster. I think if everyone's sort of understanding what the goal is and saying, hey, I talked to the client and we really have to get them this by such and such a date so that they consider it. And then I think people feel like more their work matters and they're more of the team. And it's not just transference of anger and pressure. It's like, hey, we're working together here because the reality is, we are highly paid advisors and there are deadlines, but I think communication, just like more and more communication and less like swallowing things. To me, it's something that I've worked on like in terms of myself with therapy, but I think those same things, those same techniques, I think hopefully really apply, hopefully I have this right, apply to like reduce stress and pressure.
I think highly paid is very often put in the same sentence as, okay, we can just add more pressure. We can just ask them to do more because they're paid so much.
Right.
But the paycheck is only the paycheck. We still only have one mind. We only have one body, and those two need to work together. So if you're highly paid, stressed out beyond belief, you can't string a sentence together. You can't think creatively. You can't make good decisions. Therefore, you can't serve your clients properly. There's no point in that. That's bad business. So from the top down, I think we need to look at people in the business as people, not as employees, who all of a sudden take the shape of some mystical creature that you can just kick and punch in all sorts of ways. We are not machines, we're not computers, we are all different. We function well certain times of the day and not others. And we're expected to just perform at the same high level all the time. And it's not unusual for lawyers to be perfectionists. We tend to veer toward professions that are close to who we are as people. And there is a lot of detail going on in law. Therefore, you have to have an eye for detail. People who have an eye for detail very often are perfectionists because they want to cross all the T's and dot all the I's and then some. But when we overdo it, then perfection becomes the enemy of good. And we actually do worse job than we could if we just aimed for excellence. So pressure, it's there, it's inevitable. Let's not think that going to work is just going to be holiday camp. It's not, it never was, it never will be. And I certainly wouldn't advocate for that because there's a reason we're in business. We need to make money and we want to serve our clients, and that comes at a cost, and that is you have to do something. But you should also be able to enjoy doing what you're doing. And the more open you are in the business, whether it is a law firm or in corporate, at least talk to each other, understand where are we going with the business, what are we up against, what are the deadlines coming. And it is okay for a manager to say, you know what, I'm having a really crap day today, and I'll do my best to not let it hurt you. But if it does, let me know.
Yeah,
Just be honest about who you are and what kind of day you're having, and people will respond in kind.
yeah, that's a great point.
So pressure, Mike, it's there. It'll never go away. We might as well just have to live with it. And there might be colleagues in my business who would be screaming at me saying, Peter, you can't say that. And yes, I can. I've been in business for 40 years as a lot of other things than a therapist. And I know where the pressure comes from. And I know that it's not always the boss. It could also be the customers who want something different than we thought they were doing, even though we had the brief which says this and that and the other, and the time frames, they want something different. There are demands on the home front. Again, we go to work and we go home. There are demands on the home front. There's kids' school play, there's dinners, there's leisure time that you may or may not be able to deal with. Again, demand, you must be there. I want you there. Yes, but I have, where do you draw the line? What boundaries can you set, and how understanding will your surroundings be? And I think that's some food for thought.
Yeah, I think so, and I think I'll just close by saying, for me, when I think about the times that I've been overwhelmed with stress and pressure, it's always that combination. You know, you mentioned home life at the end, probably for the first time in our conversation today. But for me, it's like I could manage all the stress you throw at me in the business place as long as everything's great at home, and I can manage all the stress at home as long as everything's great in the business. But those
Yes.
two things act together; they can both be stressors. So I think it comes down to, you know, communication and understanding and planning, and really, you know, us, you know, treating each other kindly, you know, like teammates, and saying, hey, I've got this thing going on at home, and I might be not myself today, or I might need an extra half day with that because I have to deal with this family medical issue, rather than quietly putting your head down
Yeah.
and getting more stressed about it. So I think hopefully, you know, that helps us, you know, to manage this thing that's always going to be there just a little bit better.
The people in business who are human, who are compassionate, and who show trust, they're the ones who get ahead. And it doesn't matter what industry. So on that note, I think thank you very much for those of you watching. Let us have your thoughts and your perspectives. We're more than happy to hear all of it, and also to respond, of course. Thank you so much for watching Mike and Peter talking about mental health in the legal industry. Take care now. Bye.